Well, hello, traders and investors. I'm LA Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. Taking a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. Do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. Broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube and it's under the channel LA Little. You want to subscribe on the site, just push up on the right hand corner. Hit the subscribe button anytime I push public content. You'll get a notification. Before we pop into the charts, let's look at the numbers here. It's pretty solid across the board. A little bit of weakness in a couple places, but for the most part, green across the board. But small gains, nothing stand out. S&P 500. What do you got? If you're looking at this as a a classical TA, which is patterns and all that stuff, this is like a little pennant formation that's at the apex. Usually they say when they get to the apex, it doesn't matter. It's supposed to break in the direction of the trend. That's what's supposed to happen, right? Yeah, so it may. You had volume here. If you want to look at it neoclassically, you had volume here, right? That was the Friday spike. And so this bar, inside bar, so it doesn't give you as much information as you would like. But that's where all the volume is. I think the more important bar is the one we've been talking about, which is back here. So if you push back into that area, that's where you want to see the buyers come in. And so right now, another inside day really doesn't tell you much. I don't think that there's much to glean when looking at that chart. Now on the NASDAQ, the NDX, that's where you have something a little bit more interesting. On both of these, they went over the tops and back under, and they were going against Friday's volume. And so that shows up as a negative, right? Because you get over, you get back under, that's a negative. Now, the problem is you're consolidating up here, right? So an over-under doesn't mean all that much. If you'd gotten an over-under, on the push straight up, right, then it might mean a little bit more. Now you're going sideways, right? So I don't know that you can take a big read off of that. It's a negative, but it's not a big negative. Just like on the other charts, this area here is the key area. As it comes back, each one has key areas. This is the swing point high. Retest, regen would be that. So you've already done it once. Second time back has a little less probability of holding, but still is better than a coin flip. If you look at the NDX, NDX is set up almost exactly the same. You had some real juice in Microsoft today, but outside of that, the big cap stocks didn't do much. You also had weakness in the biotechs and strength in the chip stocks. And so it was a little bit of give and a little bit of take. Again, long tails, just like you saw on Thursday, usually that leads to a little bit of a pullback. Again, the failure over the top, back under, but it's kind of minor here at this point, just given the fact that we've been going sideways now for a week. If we look finally at the Russell, now the small caps, they actually were an inside day of Friday. They're not giving us much either. All of these things have had huge runs, right? All these indexes have had huge runs, and they're basically just consolidating off of that. If I'm looking on the Russell, I'm still looking at this retest, regenerate off this swing point high break. Hasn't been back there yet, more than 6 bars. Says probabilities are pretty good. Going to be bought if and when it gets there. If I look elsewhere, we're into that part of the year where nothing's going to happen. You've already had the runs that were going to take place have already taken place, and so now it's just a matter of what takes place next is going to be kind of that grind into the Christmas holidays. You can see the volumes already starting to tail off, and so it's just hard to see much of anything happening here other than a steady grind in the direction of a trend. I'm popping over the currencies. You had the big spike down on the yen, getting a bounce back up here. The yen's just trying to get back. I'm pulling over the monthly chart. It's just trying to get back to the lows. So I don't know if the yen's telling us much. The one that was interesting was the euro. The euro wants to go to par. It's at 101. I told a friend, a colleague lives in Poland, I guess it was about a year and a half ago that we're going to par here. And he couldn't believe it. But it's steadily trying to move that direction. and we're not that far away now. You got the break, you got it on multiple swing points. This thing's going to try to move lower, and of course if the euro's moving lower, given its weighting on the dollar's going the opposite. Dollar flipped around today, was trying to trade lower, flipped around. It's going to go back up. It's got a little volume here, 26.76. The target is about 27 on the ABCD that's in effect. And so, it looks to me like the dollar's going to continue to do what it's been doing. If it does, I think it's going to be hard on commodities, in particular on gold. If we go look at the silver and gold markets, these things have been pummeled, and you can see silver down here at the lows, can't get going. Pull it back on a monthly, it's down here about to test into the key area on it. Gold did test there Friday. I've been looking at this for a while, been pointing it out. Got a little bounce up, it's not much, it's going to probably come back again. Here's that test we've been talking about, 107.35. And this is on the monthly. You got into it, 107 was the low. You're trading at 108.59 now. I think that test will continue for another few bars. Since we're on the monthly, we're talking about another couple, 3 months maybe. But this is still positive, because we're not going to have the volumes here. But at the same time, when you get a big move, right, it takes a while for this thing to turn back around. And you've had a move down 20 points on a 130 basis. That's what, 17% or so? It's a pretty big haircut on the way down. So I think it's going to take it a little while to turn around. It's still positive long term in that it's trying to turn. And what I mean by that is if you just look at the chart, right, you're slowly getting kind of this rounding bottom type action going on. If you hold, neoclassically, if you hold the key bar, which is what it's doing so far, right, and you hold it on a test of less volume, that's a positive, and this thing's going to flip around. There's probably a trade here pretty soon back up to this area. And that's not a bad move, right? 107 back to 115, even if you catch 7 of it. 7 on 105, it's not a bad number. So I think this is an area to watch. You're going to see a move back here at some point. If you go back to the daily, right, the ideal is to try to time that move. And that's what I'm focused on right now. It's just like, okay, when am I going to get a bottom that I can stick with? So far, we don't have it. We're going to get another test, and that's where you may see, a test failure. In other words, you come back down. If I just draw it out for you, you come back down, right? You test into this bar. You do it on less volume than this, right, where it hit before. You get under it. You get back over it. You hold it. Hopefully, you get a hammer at the same time. Right? That gives you the kind of idea that this thing can shoot back up. First thing to get over is here, but then you can drive it back to about 115 we were talking about. And so that to me is kind of the trade that's starting to set up. And we'll see if it plays out that way. If it does, you can take a trade. If it doesn't, you just wait because it's not the right time. Let's see here. I got a we have a mentoring program here at TA Today, and I've asked the mentors to give me a stock or two each day that to them looks like a stock that we ought to be focused on. And one, we can consider it for our portfolios at TA Today, but the other thing is just to share 1 or 2 of these with you on a daily basis and just show you what these things are looking like. The one that looked the best today is TSIM, is Tower Semiconductor. This has a very powerful pattern. I'm going to pop the monthly up to show you the breakout. So you got a breakout on the monthly. So consider what's taking place, right? You've had a nice, big, steady run. There's a little ABCD structure that's formed that can take this up higher. It gets over swing point high here, does it on volume, right? You see that with the green arrow. Gets over a swing point high here this month, and that one's not going to have the volume. So that's going to make it suspect. Now, suspect doesn't mean it can't continue. It just means it's going to have a higher probability of failing. Still greater than 60% or so, but still a higher probability than if it's confirmed. That move, if it takes off, right, gets you a target up here in this higher range that the ABCD structure points to. That's on the long term. Now pull it down to a weekly and say, what does the weekly look like? Well, the weekly looks just as good. Right? If we start with the weekly, you had a consolidation back here. breaks over that consolidation. You see the arrow, that's the breakout over that swing point high in this one. Pushes up, right? Eventually resets, does an ABCD structure, and that one's getting close to done. So if you go back and think about that monthly chart, okay, it's going to be suspect on the breakout. Well, we could get a little pullback. In other words, we complete here on the shorter term time frame, get some sort of retrace maybe back into this bar. Ideal kind of spot to think about a purchase, right, off that retrace. So maybe you go up here, you finish this, you drift back down here, you get another setup. Because if you notice, charts don't go straight up, right? They ebb and they flow. This is what Hamilton talked about back at the turn of the century. Turn of the last century, not this one. And so that's on the weekly. And finally, bring it back down to the daily. Let's find the daily. Here's that. You've got the same sort of action here on the daily. So, and again, ABCD structure up. Looks like it goes to about right there. Project it, right? Something near what you just saw on the weekly. And so this one is getting close. You're going to get a daily and a weekly that look like they're going to run out about together, right? And then you should expect a retrace. Big volume here. That says that, expect some sort of a move back into this area off the retrace. So push up, come back, right? You can get a momentum move here if you want to day trade this thing. On a longer term perspective, it's already kind of got going, so now you want to wait. And you actually have nested ABCD structures here. If you look carefully, there's actually another one right here that projects up to about the same spot. When you get nested ones, right, odds are better that they're actually going to complete. And so momentum here, you want to make a quick trade? Yeah, it's possible. Let it play out those ABCD structures, take your profits, let it pull back, and play it for another run. That's it for tonight. I like the way the market looks. It's grinding. It's unless you get some exogenous event. I know you got the Bank of Japan. I believe it's this evening. Once those numbers come out, that can move the currency markets. But other than that, there's not much left until the end of the year. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.